There's something magical that happens when you walk into a salon chair. You're carrying the weight of years, the habit of sameness, the quiet belief that maybe you've just gotten older and there's nothing you can do about it. But what if I told you that the answer isn't in serums or surgeries? What if it's sitting right there on top of your head, waiting to be transformed? I'm talking about your hair. Not as an afterthought, but as the most powerful tool you have for taking years off your face and stepping back into feeling like yourself. Today, we're diving into real transformations, the kind that shocked families, changed perspectives, and reminded women that reinvention isn't about running from who you were. It's about choosing who you want to become next. The science behind the lift. When we think about aging, we often blame things we can't control. Time, genetics, the way gravity works on all of us equally. But here's what I've learned from watching thousands of transformations. The way you wear your hair is one of the biggest factors in whether someone perceives you as youthful or older. It's not about vanity. It's about the way certain hairstyles either frame or flatten your features, the way they sit around your face and either draw attention to your best qualities or inadvertently highlight everything you're trying to soften. Long hair, especially thin or fine long hair, has a way of dragging the entire face downward. It's not intentional, but gravity and length work together to elongate your features, and when your hair is wispy at the ends, it creates a sense of frailty that we associate with aging. I've seen women with gorgeous faces absolutely transform the moment they move into a bob. And I'm not talking about just any bob. I'm talking about the strategic, layered, voluminous cuts that sit at the jawline or just above it, creating a frame that lifts and highlights your cheekbones, shortens the appearance of your face, and adds an instant sense of confidence and intention. One of my favorite transformations involves a woman named Sarah. She came in with waist-length hair that had been thinning over the years. She was 72. And she'd worn her hair long for almost 30 years because she was terrified of looking old lady short. But the thing is, her long, thin hair was actually making her look older, not younger. The stylist talked her through something revolutionary. The idea that a cut designed specifically for her face shape would do more for her appearance than any length ever could. They gave her a textured, layered bob that just grazed her shoulders. The layers added volume and movement. The length hit right at her jawline, creating a natural lift. And suddenly, Sarah looked like she'd walked out of a magazine. But here's what really mattered. Sarah felt like herself. She told us that getting ready in the morning became enjoyable again. She stopped reaching for the ponytail holder as a default. She started paying attention to her hair, because it actually felt like a part of her identity again, not just something she was managing. That's the emotional piece that transformations are really about. It's not about looking younger for anyone else. It's about feeling so aligned with yourself that age becomes almost irrelevant. The pixie cut is another game changer, especially for women who have thicker hair, or who want to make a real statement. The pixie requires confidence. There's no hiding in a pixie. But when you commit to it, something remarkable happens. Your face becomes the main event. All your features are suddenly visible and framed by this gorgeous, sculptural cut that requires maintenance, but absolutely pays off. Pixies work especially well for women with higher cheekbones, strong jawlines, or anyone who wants to show off the architecture of their face. What's important here is understanding that there's no single cut that works for everyone. What transforms one person's appearance might not serve another. That's why the real magic happens in the consultation. In a stylist who listens to what you're actually saying, who understands your lifestyle, who can read your face and suggest cuts that will genuinely serve you. The transformation isn't just about cutting hair. It's about a stylist becoming a temporary therapist, a strategist, someone who sees you and knows exactly how to bring out your best self. Permission to evolve. Let's talk about something that nobody really discusses in the beauty world, but that I think is absolutely crucial: the psychology of permission. So many women over 50 have this invisible boundary they've drawn for themselves. They think there are certain things they can't do anymore. Short hair feels too risky. Bold color feels too youthful. Playing with style feels age inappropriate. And I want to gently challenge that entire framework, because I've watched it hold women back from their own joy. I recently worked with a woman named Diana who came in after her husband of 40 years said, "You know, I think you'd look amazing with a short cut." It wasn't a criticism of her long hair. It was an invitation to experiment. But Diana was paralyzed. She'd worn her hair long for so long that she'd become identified with it. In her mind, her hair length was part of her deal with the universe. If she changed it, maybe she'd change in other ways she wasn't prepared for. That might sound dramatic, but it's actually how a lot of us think, isn't it? The stylist did something beautiful. Instead of cutting it all off at once, they gave her some time. They talked about what short hair could look like. Not a severe cut, but a sophisticated, feminine bob that would work with her texture and her lifestyle. They showed her pictures of women she admired wearing similar styles. Slowly, Diana started to give herself permission. And when she finally made the cut, she wept. Not because she was sad, but because she felt like she'd been given back a version of herself she didn't know she was missing. This is what I want you to understand about transformations. They're rarely just about hair. They're about the moment you decide that you still get to evolve. You still get to experiment. You still get to feel beautiful and interesting and intentional. There's this cultural narrative that says your look gets locked in at some point, and then you just maintain it forever. But that's a lie. Your face changes. Your priorities change. Your relationship with yourself changes. And your hair should change with you. One of the most powerful transformations I've seen involved a woman named Margaret who moved from a very long, straight, mousy brown hair situation into a chic silver pixie cut. The most shocking part? She dyed her gray out for 30 years. She was fighting her natural hair color, like it was the enemy. But the moment she embraced the silver, when she stopped seeing it as a sign of aging and started seeing it as this gorgeous, luxurious element of her beauty, everything shifted. Combined with the architectural cut of the pixie, she looked like a completely different person. Not a younger version of herself, but a more authentic, more intentional version. She looked like someone who had made choices about who she wanted to be. The before and after photos are always shocking to people, but I think what's really shocking is how much courage it takes to make that shift. It's not just vanity. It's saying I matter. My appearance matters to me. I'm worth the effort of finding the right cut, of maintaining it, of making myself feel good in my own skin. That's actually quite profound. What I've learned from years of watching these transformations is that the women who feel the most liberated afterward aren't the ones who necessarily look the most dramatically different. They're the ones who gave themselves permission to play, who trusted a stylist enough to try something new, who decided that aging doesn't mean you stop getting to feel beautiful. The practical roadmap. Now let's get really practical because I know a lot of you are watching this and thinking, this sounds beautiful, but what if I have thin hair? What if I have a round face? What if I work in a conservative environment? These are legitimate concerns, and they deserve real answers, not just inspiration. Thin hair is actually one of the most common concerns I hear. And here's the truth. Thin hair can absolutely transform with the right cut. The key is understanding that you need texture, layers, and movement. A long, straight, thin hairstyle sits flat and emphasizes the lack of volume. But a short, layered cut with movement can actually look fuller because the layers create the illusion of density. The trick is working with gravity instead of against it. Shorter hair has less weight pulling it down, so it naturally sits away from your scalp with more volume and body. I worked with a woman named Patricia who had spent decades with thin, waist-length hair that made her look exhausted. We gave her a layered bob that hit just below her ear, with lots of choppy layers throughout. We added a lightweight styling cream and a round brush, and suddenly she had this gorgeous, touchable texture that made her hair look full and healthy. She said it was the first time in years she'd felt like her hair was an asset rather than a problem. 4 round faces. The goal is creating length in the vertical direction to balance the width. This is where a longer pixie or a chin length or jaw length bob with side-swept bangs becomes magic. The angled lines and longer pieces on the sides create vertical movement that elongates the face. What you want to avoid is a blunt bob that sits exactly at the widest part of your face, that can actually emphasize the roundness. But a textured, layered bob with some movement? That's entirely different. Then there's the practical concern, maintenance. Here's something nobody tells you up front. A lot of the most flattering cuts for mature women require more maintenance than you might have had when you had long hair. A good bob needs to be trimmed every 4 to 6 weeks. A pixie cut needs even more frequent trims to maintain its shape. So before you commit to a cut, you need to be honest with yourself about whether you're willing to make those salon appointments regularly. If you're not, we need to find a cut that works for you at lower maintenance. There's no point in choosing something that's going to stress you out. I've also worked with women who were worried about their workplace or their community's expectations. They thought a dramatic cut would make them look unprofessional or draw unwanted attention. But here's what I've found. Confidence is professional. A woman who walks in with intention and style actually commands more respect than a woman who's playing it safe. That said, there are ways to be strategic. Maybe you don't go for a full pixie, but you do go for a sleek, short bob. Maybe you keep some length, but add layers and movement that completely change how you look without feeling like a dramatic statement. The real secret, though, is finding a stylist who understands your specific situation. A good stylist isn't just someone who can cut hair. It's someone who can listen to your concerns, understand your lifestyle, and help you find the cut that serves you. This might mean looking at multiple stylists before you find your person. It might mean having a conversation that feels less like a consultation and more like talking to a friend who gets you. What I want you to know is that the barriers you're imagining might be smaller than you think. And even if they're real, they're usually manageable. The women who feel most transformed are the ones who decided the version of themselves they wanted to step into was worth overcoming those barriers. The magic of color and intentionality. There's another element of transformation that I think we often overlook, and that's the role of color. A strategic haircut can do incredible things for your face shape and proportions, but combined with the right color, it becomes absolutely transformative. I'm not just talking about covering gray, though that's certainly part of it for some people. I'm talking about using color to enhance your skin tone, to add dimension, to make the cut itself look fuller and more intentional. I worked with a woman named Elena who had mousy brown hair that had been getting progressively duller. When she came in for her cut, we didn't just cut, we also reimagined her color. Instead of a flat, one-dimensional brown, we added some warmer, honey-toned highlights that caught the light and made her face look brighter and more alive. Combined with her new layered bob, it was like she'd stepped out of a completely different life. Her skin tone looked better. Her eyes looked brighter. Everything lifted. One of the most controversial decisions women over 50 face is whether to embrace their gray or cover it. And I want to be really clear. There's no right answer here. It's entirely personal. Some women look absolutely stunning with a full head of silver. Others prefer the look and feeling of their natural color covered. But I will say this, whatever you choose, commit to it. A half-grown-out root situation rarely looks intentional or flattering on anyone. If you're covering your gray, maintain it. If you're embracing it, actually lean into it with cuts and styles designed to showcase it. I've seen women make the switch to full silver and look absolutely radiant. There's something about embracing that change that releases you from a constant cycle of maintenance and worry. You stop fighting your hair and start working with it. But I've also seen women cover their gray and feel more like themselves. The point is that it's a choice, and both choices are valid. Color can also be used strategically to make a cut look fuller. Lighter colors tend to recede and can make thin hair look thinner. Darker colors can actually make fine hair look denser. Dimension and layers in color can make a cut look more textured and intentional. A good colorist, ideally working with your stylist, can use color as a tool to enhance everything the cut is doing. There's also the emotional piece of color. Some women find that going lighter or trying a new color is part of the permission-giving process we talked about earlier. It's a way of saying, I'm experimenting. I'm playing. I'm allowing myself to be different. I've seen women go from dark brown to honey blonde, or from blonde to silver, and the shift in their energy is palpable. They're not just getting a new color. They're giving themselves permission to evolve. One thing I always recommend is having a conversation with your stylist about color before you commit to a new cut. Sometimes the best cut for your face shape might benefit from a particular color approach. Maybe you need dimension to make the layers pop. Maybe you need a certain tone to complement your skin. Maybe you need to lean into your grays with intention. These are all conversations worth having, because the cut and the color are really a package deal. They work together to create the overall transformation. What's beautiful about color is that it's less permanent than a cut. If you try something and don't love it, Hair color grows out or can be adjusted. This makes it a great place to experiment if you're feeling nervous about change. Maybe you try some highlights before you commit to a full new cut. Maybe you play with subtle color shifts while keeping your length the same. Color can be the gateway drug to bigger transformations. Final thoughts. Here's what I want to leave you with as we wrap up. Transformation isn't really about looking 10 years younger, though that often happens as a side effect. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that feels aligned with who you actually are right now. It's about deciding that you deserve to feel beautiful, that your appearance matters to you, and that evolution is always available to you, no matter what your age is. I think about all the women I've seen go through this process, and what strikes me most is the moment after the cut. When they look in the mirror for the first time, there's often this second of shock, because they're seeing themselves reflected back in a way they haven't in years. And then there's this shift in their face. Their shoulders relax. They smile. Sometimes they cry, because in that moment, they're giving themselves permission to be seen, to be admired, to take up space in a way that feels intentional and beautiful. The practical steps are important. Find a good stylist. Have an honest conversation about your face shape, your hair type, your lifestyle, and your concerns. Maybe bring pictures of styles you love. Maybe ask about color strategies. Maybe ask how much maintenance a cut will require. Be honest about what you're willing to commit to. But beneath all of that, give yourself the most important thing: permission. Permission to look different. Permission to try something new. Permission to prioritize how you feel in your own skin. Permission to evolve. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The way you show up in the world affects everything. When you feel beautiful, you move differently. You engage differently. You allow yourself to be seen more fully. And that changes your life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path for more conversations about beauty, aging gracefully, and becoming the most intentional version of yourself. Thank you so much for being here, and remember, you're never too old to transform.